Andy Farrell, Alan Quinlan, has been watching, I suspect, the last couple of weeks. The last day out for him was Twickenham. I wonder how many times he's watched that game back over the many, many months of lockdown. It doesn't feel, no Heineken Champions Cup semi-final representation and that defeat in Twickenham. It doesn't feel like Ireland has quite recovered Irish rugby from 2019, which was a terrible year. I appreciate the lockdown has made things very strange for everyone, but you wouldn't say Irish rugby's hit the ground running post-lockdown either.
No, it's not. I think on the back of the World Cup as well, that's lingering still. The loss in Twickenham, as you say, and I think with no Irish team now in the semi-finals, Munster went out and didn't make the knockout stages. We only had two there. It was always going to be incredibly difficult for Ulster going to Toulouse. From an Irish point of view, there was massive confidence that Leinster were the team to beat in this competition. Given Saracens from their last loss are missing 11, 12 guys, it's a lot of different personnel, but still a top quality side. And I think that's probably just deflates things a little bit more, the disappointment of Leinster going out yesterday. And that's not what the Irish coach would want. I actually thought about this. Was Andy Farrell happy for his son's team yesterday? Was he really disappointed for his Irish players? I think disappointed for his Irish players for sure. It is a little bit concerning, but the only way you can put back and get something positive going is to try and finish the Six Nations well against Italy and against France. I don't think there's a lot of room for any sort of trial and error against Italy. You've got to put your best foot forward for that selection-wise. But look, the players will all have a little bit of a break now. Munster and Connacht have had that for the last week or two. Leinster, Ulster now will have a little bit of a refresh, come back, try and get most of these players out in the place in Pro 14 if they can before they get together with Ireland to try and put it to bed and build some confidence. But there's still a core group of players that are very talented. One or two new guys come in. It'll be really interesting to see how Caelan Doris does. Will Connors might be in the mix. There's a few guys that put their hands up there, put pressure on others, and he will only be able to decide that probably in the start of the season. Of course, some people probably haven't done themselves any favours. John Cooney, who we were all talking about last Six Nations, should be starting. He's kind of gone back a little bit and less pressure on Conor Murray now. So there's a lot of interesting selections. Getting Tyg Furlong back up and running, James Ryan, who's an integral part of that Irish pack. So, and more competitiveness probably in around the fly half position, with Joey Carberry not being involved. So it's not the best mood in the camp at the moment, but
no, I think
it's not all doom and gloom either. They'll get back on track.
We had a bad weekend, of course we have, and let's not throw the toys out, but I think there's a real reality check and a bit of a grounding, definitely for sure. Leinster were flying it up until the weekend, you know what I mean? Now, they weren't playing amazing in terms of the games leading up to it, but in general, I think there are positives in terms of whether you like it or not. You're going to have a healthy squad, so we'd be happy with that. Our scrum, after the Saracens game, as in Leinster, where you have Keane Healy, you have Porter, you have these guys who will be involved in Ireland, immediately go, well, we have a bad scrum. Well, we don't. We had a bad game. We had a bad weekend with our scrum. So I think let's be realistic and understand that, do you know what? It's not a bad place we're coming from now. We're not going to be the world beaters that everybody thinks we are. We have things to improve on. We'll have a healthy squad. I just hope, and again, I'm not a coach. I can't imagine the pressures that are involved in it, but I just hope there's a realisation. Let's play a bit. Let's get away from what we would perceive as this box kick and not attacking teams. We've seen how, when we watch rugby, the teams that win are the teams that go after teams. They hold the ball, they increase the tempo, they increase the pressure on the opposition. So when you go and do an up and under box kick the whole time, like we've seen in some of the Pro 12 games, you didn't see so much of it today, thankfully, but let's back ourselves. We've got good players, we've got.
And you could probably
back.
look at the Leinster game yesterday and say they probably didn't play enough. You look at the Larmour try and you look at the opportunities, and that's probably what you're talking about there. You want to see is that maybe, Joe, if you're saying, and it's come up a few times against the English side, the English national team and Saracens, that this physicality, well, maybe we need to go away from the box kicking and just play more and get width straight away and try and get more variety in our attack and maybe move away a little bit. We still go back to 18. We were phenomenal at the kicking game. Our resourcing in a breakdown was sensational. Our decision making, our pressure on the opposition. There's only so long we've got to evolve, and that's the challenge now that Jennings was talking about.
What we were good at.
Yeah, we have to
countered it.
And you think, you're talking about the negativity. Leinster had one bad first half yesterday.
I appreciate that, but I'm putting this into the context of Twickenham last day, on the back of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Twickenham last day out is the last time we saw this Irish team play. And then Leinster beaten by Sarries in the final in
What did
Newcastle.
we do different in Twickenham?
Nothing. That's the point.
So that's what we're saying. We have to do something different now, which is play a little bit more.
Okay.
Not in your own half, because like I said, you play around your own half. Everybody's good at the breakdown. Wingers, fullbacks, centres, they poach the ball, 3 points. That's what Saracens did yesterday. I think Leinster played around a little bit too much in their own half yesterday. So, you know, you have to try and learn as you move on. They came up against a side yesterday who were superb, and that's the challenge for Ireland. You know, you can turn this around very, very quickly again. We've a small pool of players. We've, you know, sometimes we overachieve, sometimes we underachieve. I think we're somewhere in the middle. Obviously, World Cups are an issue, and getting that right and timing and all that kind of stuff. And every team goes to a World Cup to try and get that balance right. But, you know, I think there's a good opportunity maybe in the Nations Cup games to tinker around a bit and find some new players and give some new opportunities.
But I think you're right, Joe. Like, it's the creativity. If teams have suss to say, let's see how we can suss out some other teams, you know what I mean? You know England are going to come, just like South Africa are going to come. It's pretty obvious what they're going to do. Now, it's difficult to compete and go against it, but that would be something that would excite me going into it, that, okay, let's try something. We have to do it.
And do we have the skill set to do that?
Yeah, I definitely think we do.
Yeah,
we 100%
you have to get it right, though, in a sense. And you watch Maka Vunipola, Billy Vunipola, Itoje, Rhodes yesterday. There's times where you have to run with the ball with one-out runners. It's slow, you've got to try and get a soft shoulder, get a little bit of momentum, and they keep smashing you. That's where you need a really good 9 and 10 to just play some territory.
But don't we have really good 9 and 10?
We have, but it's the decisions that they make at times, and maybe it's changing that programming in their mind a little bit. And that's the key to having a really top-class decision makers in your team and real good leadership. So I'm sure Andy Farrell and Mike Catt will have looked at this stuff and tried to decide, because if you have pacey wingers and good players at scoring tries, try and get them the ball as quickly as can. Ringrose is someone who doesn't get enough of the ball early enough for me. You get the ball in his hands early. He's not going to make a line break every time, but he's certainly going to get evasion. It's going to be a leg tackle. That ruck is quick. And that's the whole idea of getting at your evasive players, is trying to generate quick ball. And then opposition can't get set. Anytime, the times we've lost against England in the last few years in Saracens, the ball has been slowed down, and then they're smashing you on the next second, third, fourth phase, and then you've no answer to that.
So it does feel like, I mean, Irish rugby's at a bit of a crossroads here. I mean, they can't keep doing what they're doing. Like, the Pro 14 isn't a test of anything, really. I mean, Leinster have won 25 games at a canter since the last final, and Ireland similarly have to reinvent themselves. So that kind of is where we are at the moment here. That block that 2018 was built on has been analysed to death by others. So now it's time to see what Ireland are going to bring to the party.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And let's not totally dismiss the Pro 14 in terms of, I agree with you, the competition level isn't as high as you would expect, but it also has brought through a lot of players, given a lot of players experience, which will add value to both the provinces and the national team moving forward. That said, I do agree something has to change because it hasn't worked for us. So therefore, let's be honest with ourselves. And I know I said I would like to be a coach, but I think what I would personally love to see, and I think we'd all get behind a team, if you saw Ireland, like Andy Farrell's a defensive expert, let's get that expertise and let's see it manifest itself in just closing down teams, and let's put them under pressure. And, you know, it doesn't take a lot to kind of get people behind you. And we want to see that energy, and we want to see these people express themselves rather than coming off the field going, do you know what, we didn't fire a shot. That's, I think, the frustration. Whereas I believe we do have the level of talent. I do believe we have the level of coaching to do it. It's just a bit of a reset now and go, do you know what, now we've got to really kind of step up. And, you know, it's a good test for everybody.